Justin Baldoni's legal team is speaking out. After Blake Lively's lawyers Ezra Hudson and Mike Gottlieb shared a statement about a, quote, total victory following Justin's $400 million countersuit being dismissed.
Hollywood just witnessed one of its most explosive courtroom dramas. A $400 million defamation case shattered reputations and accusations that could end careers. At the center of the chaos, two once-beloved co-stars whose on-screen chemistry masked a firestorm of secrets, betrayal, and allegations that have now spilled into the public eye. Justin Baldoni, the charming actor-director, went to war with Blake Lively, the golden girl of Hollywood, in a legal clash that reads more like a thriller than a lawsuit. What started as a promising film project between professionals quickly turned into a battlefield of leaked messages, Instagram statements, and allegations so severe they could cripple careers. The suit massive, the damage possibly irreversible. Lively accused Baldoni of crossing serious lines behind the scenes. Baldoni in return claimed she was leading a calculated campaign to erase him from the industry. But the truth, or at least what the court could verify, is far more complicated. Because behind the legal language were hundreds of private texts, whispers of sabotage, and a New York Times investigation that shattered the illusion of a polished Hollywood friendship. This isn't just about a movie falling apart. This is about power revenge and the terrifying lengths people will go to protect their image or destroy someone else's. But how did it all begin? What was Blake Lively really dealing with behind closed doors? And did Justin Baldoni go too far, or is he the one being framed? Let's start at the beginning with a lawsuit that rocked the very foundations of celebrity justice. It began with a headline no one expected. Justin Baldoni was suing Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds for a jaw-dropping $400 million, claiming defamation, sabotage, and professional destruction. Overnight fans were stunned. How did a beloved actor-director like Baldoni go from filming a heartfelt drama with Blake to accusing her and her husband of orchestrating a takedown? The answer: a project that was supposed to change lives. It ends with us. Adapted from the best-selling novel, this was meant to be a career-defining film. Baldoni was not just starring, he was directing. Lively had been cast as the lead on Maud. Paper, it looked like magic, but behind the scenes, something dark was unfolding, something that would leave reputations in ruins. In his lawsuit, Baldoni claimed that after tensions escalated on set, Blake Lively, backed by her husband, Ryan Reynolds, waged a campaign to destroy him and his career. He accused the couple of hijacking the film's direction, spreading damaging narratives, and manipulating the media to paint him as the villain. His legal team insisted this wasn't just a personality clash, it was a calculated, targeted smear campaign, but Lively wasn't silent. Months before Baldoni filed suit, she'd already taken legal action of her own. In December 2024, she filed a civil rights complaint accusing Baldoni of sexual harassment during the production. According to her, she endured inappropriate behavior, verbal remarks, and retaliation after speaking up. She said her concerns were dismissed until she went public. That's when everything erupted. Baldoni denied all allegations. His countersuit painted a very different picture: that Lively's claims were fabricated and that she weaponized public sympathy to deflect from her own misconduct. He said she twisted the truth, used the media, and enlisted the help of powerful allies, including her husband and their publicist, to ruin his name. Things got even messier when Baldoni included the New York Times in his lawsuit, suing them for $250 million after they published an explosive investigation into Lively's allegations. He claimed the article was full of distortions and leaned heavily on what he called Lively's self-serving narrative. But when the case hit court, the response was swift. The judge threw out nearly the entire lawsuit, calling it legally hollow. All claims against Lively, Reynolds, their publicist, and the New York Times were dismissed. Lively's legal team called it a total victory and complete vindication. The court wasn't just siding with Lively, it was signaling that her allegations were protected under California law, especially in light of the Me Too movement. Still, the war isn't over. Baldoni was given the option to refile parts of his complaint, and his team made it clear they planned to fight back. This wasn't just a legal loss. It was a public unraveling of a star once known for his uplifting family, friendly image. Now the world was seeing a very different Justin Baldoni, and the most damning evidence that was still to come. The drama didn't start in court. It started. On Set It Ends With Us was supposed to be a passion project, a powerful emotional adaptation of Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel about love, trauma, and survival. Justin Baldoni was both the director and lead actor. Blake Lively was cast in the role of Lily Bloom, the heart of the story. But while cameras were rolling, something was falling apart behind the scenes. At first, the tension was subtle. A cold glance, a missed cue, a disagreement over direction. But insiders say that by the third week of filming, things had become unbearably strained. Blake, known for her professionalism and composure, was reportedly growing frustrated with Baldoni's approach. He was micromanaging everything one anonymous crew member shared. He wasn't just directing, he was dominating. Rumors began circulating about clashes between the two stars. Blake allegedly disagreed with several creative choices, including how sensitive scenes were being shot. She pushed for authenticity, emotional nuance. Baldoni, insiders say, wanted more control, and when challenged, he didn't take it lightly. The set reportedly became divided, with crew members quietly taking sides. Some felt Baldoni was being overly demanding, pushing the cast to their limits. Others claimed Blake was difficult, constantly questioning direction, but even as whispers swirled, both stars kept a professional face during the press tour, smiling, posing, answering questions like nothing was wrong. But eagle-eyed fans noticed something was off. During interviews, Blake's tone was guarded. Her answers were rehearsed. She often referred to her creative challenges during filming, but never named names. When Baldoni spoke about their collaborative process, Blake rarely echoed his words, "There was no chemistry, only tension." Then came the breaking point. According to reports, Blake Lively began documenting incidents, private conversations, uncomfortable moments, and most importantly, alleged comments made by Baldoni that crossed the line. Sources close to the actress said she felt uncomfortable and unsupported, especially during emotionally intense scenes. She began voicing her concerns to producers, only to be met with silence. That's when things escalated. Baldoni's team, according to court documents later filed, began conducting damage control, reaching out to crisis PR firms, crafting narratives, preparing for fallout. But the real bombshell didn't hit until months later, when Blake formally filed a civil rights complaint, accusing Baldoni of sexual harassment and retaliation. The world finally got a glimpse of what had been boiling beneath the surface, and the fallout wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Texts allegedly sent by Baldoni's crisis team included the chilling phrase, "We can bury her." Suddenly, this wasn't just a bad set experience, it was war. What began as creative differences had now turned into one of Hollywood's ugliest legal feuds, and no one was walking away clean. But while the headlines focused on the lawsuit, few people knew what was actually inside that complaint. In December 2024, the whispers finally turned into a roar. Blake Lively, who had remained largely silent after the rocky filming of It Ends With Us, made a move that shook Hollywood's foundations. She filed a civil rights complaint against her co-star and director Justin Baldoni. It wasn't just a dispute over creative differences anymore. Lively's complaint accused Baldoni of sexual harassment, retaliation, and orchestrating a targeted smear campaign. The allegations were explosive. According to the complaint, Lively endured repeated inappropriate comments and uncomfortable behavior from Baldoni throughout filming. She claimed that the hostile environment wasn't just isolated moments. It was sustained, manipulative, and protected by silence at the highest levels. Blake said she raised concerns privately and professionally but was ignored. Instead of being heard, she was targeted. Retaliation, Lively alleged, came swiftly. Behind the scenes, Baldoni's team reportedly began spinning a narrative, one designed to undermine her credibility. According to her lawyers, a PR war machine was activated. Blake's complaint included hundreds of text messages between Baldoni and his crisis management consultants detailing a plan to discredit her. One message, now infamous, allegedly read, "We can bury her." It wasn't just about refuting the claims, it was about destroying her public image. According to the filing, Baldoni's inner circle crafted talking points, selectively leaked information, and even suggested seeding anonymous tips to gossip blogs to turn public opinion against her. Blake, known for her carefully guarded privacy, didn't just push back. She went public. On her Instagram story, she shared a statement that quickly went viral. Like so many others, I felt the pain of a retaliatory lawsuit, including the manufactured shame that tries to break us, while the suit against me was defeated. So many don't have the resources to fight back. I'm more resolved than ever to continue to stand for every woman's right to have a voice in protecting themselves. The timing was strategic. Just weeks after Baldoni had filed his $400 million defamation suit against her and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, Lively flipped the narrative. She wasn't just defending herself, she was standing up for every woman silenced by power and fear. Her complaint cited specific incidents, lewd jokes on set, uncomfortable moments during private rehearsals, dismissive comments when she raised boundaries. But what made the complaint even more damning was how it detailed the systematic retaliation, how an A-list actress was allegedly gaslit and discredited by a man who once called himself a feminist voice in Hollywood. And it didn't stop there. The complaint also pointed fingers at Baldoni's business partners, PR handlers, and even members of his production company. This wasn't one person behaving badly. It was Lively claimed a coordinated machine of suppression. Hollywood was stunned. Some called her brave. Others questioned the timing. But no one could deny that Blake, Lively, had taken a wrecking ball to the illusion of Hollywood harmony and shattered it for all to see. But the legal storm was only beginning because Baldoni wasn't backing down. In Hollywood, image is everything, and behind every polished smile. And red carpet photo lies a battleground of carefully controlled narratives. But what happens when the curtain is pulled back and the receipts are exposed? That's exactly what Blake Lively did. As part of her civil rights complaint, Lively submitted hundreds of internal text messages allegedly exchanged between Justin Baldoni and his crisis PR team. And they weren't vague or abstract. These were direct, brutal, and strategic, laying out a playbook that sounded less like damage control and more like a targeted character assassination. The message that made headlines, "We can bury her." Just 4 words, but they carried the weight of a Hollywood takedown. According to the complaint, this message was sent between members of Baldoni's inner circle as they allegedly strategized how to dismantle Blake's credibility before her allegations could gain traction. This wasn't a PR response. It was a calculated effort to silence a voice Lively's legal team claimed these texts were part of a broader smear campaign designed to protect Baldoni's brand at all costs. He wasn't just a director, he was a self-styled feminist, a media entrepreneur, and a Hollywood good guy. The allegations, if believed, would destroy that image, so the response they alleged had to be scorched earth. What emerged was a chilling portrait of reputation warfare. The messages detailed suggestions to leak insider tips to gossip blogs, anonymously plant stories about Lively being difficult on set, and subtly discredit her activism by suggesting she had ulterior motives. Even her marriage to Ryan Reynolds wasn't off limits. One message allegedly floated the idea of framing her as jealous of Baldoni's rising influence in the industry. But Blake came prepared. Her lawyers didn't just submit texts. They submitted timelines, emails, and strategic talking point documents, allegedly prepared by Baldoni's team. These internal memos laid out ways to manipulate public opinion, twist the narrative, and even hinted at contacting influential journalists to reshape the coverage. The implications were enormous. For a town already under scrutiny after the Me Too movement, this was a nuclear moment. A-list actors using Hollywood's PR machine not to protect the truth, but to bury it. If true, this wasn't just bad optics, it was proof of a deep-rooted culture of silencing. And the public noticed social media exploded with hashtags like, "Yo, we can bury her," and "Your stand with Blake" as fans. And celebrities alike began re-examining the sanitized image of Justin Baldoni. Was the same man who built his brand on kindness and vulnerability capable of such behind-the-scenes manipulation? Baldoni's team, for their part, denied it all. They called the texts selectively edited, taken out of context, and part of a smear campaign against him. But the damage had already been done. The public had seen the receipts, and no amount of spin could unsend those messages. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a war of narratives, and in Hollywood, the side with the best story and the worst receipts usually wins. But as the case moved forward, the stakes only grew higher. By the time the text hit the public, the gloves were off, and what followed wasn't just a legal battle, it was a full-scale Hollywood war. Blake Lively didn't just file a civil rights complaint and quietly disappear. She went on the offensive with the backing of a seasoned legal team and growing public support. She transformed from a starlet under siege into a symbol of resistance against the toxic power structures in entertainment. Fellow actors, women's rights advocates, and even some former collaborators began voicing support publicly and privately, framing her battle not just as personal, but emblematic of something much bigger. And Justin Baldoni, he didn't back down. Instead, he fired back with a $400 million defamation lawsuit, not just against Lively, but against her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and their longtime publicist, Leslie Sloan. The message was clear: he wasn't going to be destroyed without a fight. In his legal claim, Baldoni accused Lively and her inner circle of orchestrating a calculated character attack using her allegations. As a weapon to tank his career and hijack his creative project, It Ends With Us. The suit also dragged in the New York Times, slapping the newspaper with a separate $250 million libel claim for publishing what Baldoni called a false, defamatory, and one-sided hit piece. That article, it was titled, "We Can Bury Anyone Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine," and it lit the fuse. The exposé detailed Lively's original complaint and included disturbing references to behind-the-scenes power plays secret, crisis meetings, and calculated image manipulation. The phrase, "we can bury her," became a chilling headline, not just a text. The Times alleged that this wasn't an isolated scandal. It was part of a systemic machine designed to protect powerful men and silence women who spoke out. The backlash was immediate. Hollywood smear machine began trending globally. Fans questioned how many other stories had been buried. Suddenly, this wasn't about Blake and Justin anymore. It was about every suppressed voice in the industry. The Times stood by its reporting, defending it as both accurate and in the public interest, while Baldoni's team accused the paper of sloppy journalism and amplifying a false narrative built on manipulation and revenge. In court, the battle lines were clearly drawn. Lively's attorneys argued that her allegations were not only protected speech under California's anti-SLAPP statute, but also reinforced by credible evidence. The judge agreed, at least in part, tossing out major chunks of Baldoni's case, including his defamation claims. The New York Times also prevailed, with the judge ruling that its reporting fell under the fair report privilege, shielding it from liability. But that didn't mean it was over. The court granted Baldoni the option to amend some of his claims, signaling that more legal volleys were likely coming. His team vowed to return with stronger evidence and sharper allegations, insisting they were the real victims of defamation and betrayal. Meanwhile, public opinion had started to shift, and in Hollywood, sometimes perception is more powerful than any verdict. What came next would push this legal saga into even more dangerous territory. When the gavel finally dropped, it didn't just close a chapter, it sent a message echoing far beyond the courtroom. Judge Curtis. A Hanson's ruling didn't address the truth behind the allegations. That wasn't the court's role. But legally, the verdict was crystal clear. Baldoni's most explosive claims obliterated. The $400 million defamation suit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds and their publicist, dismissed. The $250 million libel case against the New York Times, also dismissed. And the reason wasn't just procedural, it cut to the heart of the post-Me Too legal landscape. The court found that Blake Lively's civil rights complaint, no matter how damning, was protected under California's anti-SLAPP laws, designed specifically to protect free speech, especially when survivors speak up against powerful figures. Her statements, the judge said, fell under protected activity in response to alleged harassment. Even the act of giving her complaint to the New York Times, the very move Baldoni claimed triggered the smear campaign, was ruled legally protected under the fair report privilege. In the eyes of the court, she wasn't defaming him, she was exercising her right to be heard. For Lively's team, it was a clear victory. In a statement, her lawyers called the lawsuit a sham and praised the judge for seeing right through it. Public support surged. For many, it was confirmation that speaking out could still win, even in the face of a retaliatory lawsuit from a powerful man. But the judge didn't shut the door entirely. He gave Baldoni's team one last lifeline: permission to amend 4 remaining claims, including tortious interference and breach of implied covenant. If they could come back with stronger evidence and tighter arguments, they might still fight another day. But even with that sliver of legal hope, the message was clear. The courtroom belonged to Lively for now. With the legal rug pulled out from under him, Justin Baldoni didn't retreat. He reloaded within days of the judge's ruling. Baldoni's team issued a fiery statement promising to revise their claims. They insisted that false accusations and a carefully orchestrated PR attack had destroyed Baldoni's reputation, and they weren't done fighting. Then came the next move: a website. Slickly designed and clearly crafted with strategy, the site hosted private text messages, detailed timelines, and alleged inconsistencies in Lively's claims. It painted Baldoni not as a predator, but as a man under siege, betrayed by a co-star. And, railroaded by media spin, the goal discredit Blake reclaimed the narrative, turned the tide. But the public wasn't buying it wholesale. Some saw it as a desperate attempt to salvage a crumbling image, a form of digital retaliation dressed up as transparency. Others, however, began asking tougher questions. Was Lively's timeline airtight? Were some of the claims exaggerated? Had the media, hungry for a villain, rushed to judgment? Suddenly, the court of public opinion was divided. Supporters of Lively called the website a form of modern smear warfare, echoing her exact accusations. Baldoni's defenders said it was his right to defend himself, especially if the courts wouldn't hear everything at once. But there was one undeniable truth: the damage was already done. His film career, once rising, fast, had been eclipsed by scandal. Lively, though scarred, had emerged with a victory and a new platform. And Hollywood was watching every move, knowing full well that in this business, image is currency and scandal leaves scars that even truth can't always erase. And yet both sides were still standing, and the final battle might still be coming. Beneath the courtroom arguments and celebrity headlines, something far more sinister was laid bare. Hollywood's dirty war over power perception and silence. This wasn't just a clash between former co-stars. It wasn't just a $400 million lawsuit or a scandal that dominated news cycles. It was a battle for control over the narrative, over reputations, over who gets to speak and who gets buried. The case pulled back the velvet curtain on the industry's darkest habits, weaponized PR, silent retaliation, hidden agendas. The leaked messages weren't just gossip fodder. They revealed a systemic culture of control where influence is currency, and erasing someone is just a well-timed headline away. When Lively accused Baldoni of harassment, it wasn't just about a man's behavior on set. It was about the machine that allegedly moved into place to protect him and destroy her. The text: "We can bury her." It didn't read like damage control. It read like a blueprint. And that's what shook people who really controls the narrative in Hollywood. Is it the stars? The studios? The crisis PR firms working overtime behind the scenes? Because for every brave face that speaks out, how many others stay silent, terrified of what could happen if they don't? Blake Lively, in the aftermath of her legal win, didn't just thank her lawyers or post a victory selfie. She doubled down her message. Was clear: "I'm more resolved than ever to continue to stand for every woman's right to have a voice." It wasn't a celebration, it was a declaration. And that's what makes this case bigger than any tabloid drama or red carpet rivalry. It has become a catalyst for a deeper conversation, one that Hollywood, despite all its image polish and progressive hashtags, still hasn't finished having. This wasn't just a scandal, this was a reckoning. A $400 million lawsuit collapsed. Careers trembled. Private texts went public. And behind it all, one painful truth emerged for years. The real drama in Hollywood hasn't been on screen. It's been behind the scenes. In court, Baldoni lost his biggest claims. But in public, the war continues. His website, her statements, their reputations clashing like box office rivals, and the industry watching, whispering, shifting. The message from the courtroom echoed loud. Status, fame, and money aren't enough to silence women anymore. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like the silence is breaking. Whether Baldoni rebounds or Lively's fight sparks real change, one thing is certain: the rules have changed, and Hollywood it may never be the same again.